Welcome to Skyton Academy, where excellence meets opportunity. As one of the 5 pillars, our next focus is professional development. Here, students dive deep into courses like planning and execution and brace for upcoming masterclasses like private equity investing. But that's just the beginning. Soon, they'll immerse themselves in real estate fix and flip, tax lien sales, and even learn the art of business brokerage. And yes, there's ChatGPT 101 and much more. With an enrollment fee of just $50 per month, Skyton Academy empowers you to unlock your full potential. Join us. Let's soar together.
What's going on, ladies and gents? Skyton Guys is back at it again. Tonight, we have a live call. We're going to be talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly of real estate investing. Steve, what's going on, bro?
Everything's good. Yeah, let me start it by teaching first, right? Because I want you guys to have a understanding of what I know about real estate, and then just so that way there's always value. So we're just going to start with the basics. I don't know if people know how many different ways there are to invest in real estate, right? Because if you think about the culture, all you hear is fix and flip, buy the block, buy the hood. All these terms have been coined for us. So let me give you the simple, right? The first thing is going to be direct property ownership. Okay. And within there, you have residential properties. So that could be buying homes, condos, townhomes, apartments to rent out. You have commercial properties. And mind you, anybody that's in the academy, I'm back on the real estate tip again. So you'll start to get this stuff loaded in professional development. All right. So we have commercial properties, purchasing office buildings, retail space, or industrial properties. Vacation rentals. Okay, investing in properties in tourist areas to rent out for short-term platforms similar to like Airbnb. We talked about that a lot. Multifamily properties, okay, duplexes, triplexes, or larger, right? Anything over 4 is going to be considered commercial real estate. Just some basics. The next is going to be real estate investment trusts. So these are acronym REITs at the end of the day, okay? So this is publicly traded REITs, investing in REITs that are listed on the stock exchange. So there are companies just like ETFs, private REITs, investing in non-traded REITs. So this is similar to maybe Grant Cardone, if you guys know him. They're just not publicly traded. And then you got mortgage REITs, okay? Investing, it basically provides funding for income-producing real estate by purchasing original mortgages. All right. So they're basically buying paper at the end of the day. So that's number 2. Number 3 is going to be real estate crowdfunding. Okay. So platforms allow investors to pool money together to fund real estate projects. You can invest both equity ownership or on the debt lending side. So there's opportunities on both sides. All right. 4 is going to be real estate mutual funds. So investing in mutual funds that focus on real estate companies and REITs. All right. So understand, they're just wrapping a whole bunch of products around the same product. These guys created a complex system that doesn't have to be this complex, but again, there's verticals. We have real estate ETFs. Okay. So investing in ETFs that track real estate indexes or sectors. All right. Those are publicly traded companies. Next, you have real estate notes. This is probably by far, and Andre and I talked about this. This is buying promissory notes secured by real estate, effectively becoming the lender, the bank. All right. After that, we have real estate syndication. That's joining a group of investors who pool their money together to buy a larger property or a portfolio, similar to crowdfunding. Okay. We have real estate partnerships, so forming a partnership to purchase and manage properties. 1 or 2 people, doesn't take that much to become a partner. Fix and flip, this is kind of where we're at. This is what we hear a lot about. Buying properties in need of repair, renovating them, and selling them for profit. Fix and flip. Real estate development, investing in real estate construction projects, either residential or commercial. These are going to be ground up construction for the most part. And then when you start to get towards the bottom, you have wholesaling. All right. Finding discounted properties, getting them under contract, and then selling the contract to another investor for a fee. wholesaling. One of the things about wholesaling that I don't like is the way that it's introduced to the culture, right? It's just one of those things where it's like, oh, no money down, you don't need any money. Listen, everything requires money, right? If it's not physical, tangible money, it's going to come in the form of time, right? So there is nothing that you can start with zero. So wholesaling is about time. It's about due diligence. It's about organization. And then the last is going to be land investment. So purchasing undeveloped land for future development or sale. Okay, so this is a great way to hedge against inflations in the time that we're in right now. Buying cheap land in places. You don't have to do much, guys. You know, cut the grass, keep the sidewalk shoveled. You know, land investing. All right. The thing about land investing you have to understand is it does cost you per year to manage and operate land. So, you know, you have to stay on top of that depending on what municipality, city, or state. You know, I've had a place where if the grass was like a quarter of an inch too high, they'll come around and give you a blight ticket. So, you know, it could become a problem if you're not on top of it, you know, because it's one of those things that's not, you haven't developed it, so you're not really paying much mind to it. Okay. But you got to make sure they stay on the schedule. Now, back to the wholesaling situation. What you are seeing now with the amount of people that are wholesaling, you're seeing a lot of gimmicks and tactics that are happening in the culture. Okay. I've been involved in wholesale deals before. And what happens is a lot of people are trained by people who use deceptive practices, right? Lying to the buyer, the end buyer, telling them that you're closing on it, right? You're a cash buyer, knowing that you're not, right? That's deceptive. On top of that, you have the only state right now that requires a license for it. So when you're working in industries that are unlicensed, then there's nothing to hold. You can't really hold somebody accountable at the end of the day. So there's been a lot of states that are instituting new laws, and probably in the future, I would say within the next 3 to 5 years, you're probably going to need a real estate license to even do wholesaling, which I totally agree with. You have to hold these people accountable to these tactics. Person gets to the closing table, you're buying it for 20. They look at the HUD, it's actually selling for 80, right? So you're basically making 4 or 5 times more. There's no buyer that's ever happy with something like that. All right. So now we're going back to, is it legal or is it immoral? Okay, that's the age-old question. I'm just to the point in life now where I'm everything is built on morals and principles for me, especially now, right, in these times. So just trying to find my words. I got so much to put out for you guys today. So much to put out. All right, let me stick to the teaching and then we'll get on that. And we actually have a guest tonight that's going to talk about some things that he's going through in real estate. All right, so for you to understand real estate, you have to understand key market cycles. All right, just drop a 1 in the chat if you've taken a real estate course before from anybody. I don't care who it was. Just drop a 1 in the chat and a 2 if you haven't. One of the things I always tell students when it comes to learning real estate, and I've noticed this trend, especially with a lot of the guys that are rug pulling a lot of people, they don't really care about how successful you're going to be or if you're going to be successful, right? Because the product has a price on it and it's just bodies at that point, right? This is how they're making money. Anybody that's actively involved in real estate rarely teaches real estate, right? And I'm talking about actively involved. Where would you have the time to sit there and teach people? Okay. So with that said, there's a couple things that I want you guys to look for when you are either deciding to take a course or looking to take a course. Always make sure that they lead with how to analyze a property, right? Because what's happening is they're not teaching you how to properly fish, okay? There's a larger population or there's a larger pool to choose from for people who don't want to be held accountable, all right? I won't have the most popular real estate course on the market because I hold people accountable. I'm going to give you all the information that you need in order to make informed decisions for yourself. Okay. So when I look at these courses, and I'm only going based on the little bit that I bought from people and then the amount of students that have come to me through the academy that I learned got burnt on some real estate deals. And they all had the same thing in common. One, they trusted these individuals with their money. Okay. And I think I told you guys a story. There was a guy in Philly and we had our first meeting and he was like, you didn't bring the 10K? Like in a shoebox he was expecting. And this was just a meet and greet. I don't know this guy from anywhere, just met him on the internet, but people are really giving this guy 10K with no problem. So for me, I went to him initially because I was new to the market. I said, you know what, Philly's a little bit different. Let me get somebody who's seasoned and let me learn and just navigate the new terrain that I'm in. But he was like, Steve, listen, you don't have to do any work. You just give us the money. We find the property. We fix it. You sell it or you keep it. And I'm like, but what would I learn at that point? And I said, I've already done fix and flip before. This is just about the Philly market and nothing more. So when these guys are selling you an all-in-one out the box situation, and it's not just happening in the culture, the HGTV guys, I mean, guys are charging 30, 40, 50 grand for courses, right? It's they don't have any information that you can't get online for free. All right. So always make sure you lead in with how to analyze a property, right? Because in real estate, you make your money at the purchase. That's it. You analyze it right. You got room to make mistakes. And then there's somewhere there's just not enough room at all. So now you're putting your trust in someone who you don't know. You don't know how they're analyzing it because they never taught you. So they're giving you something. So I gave this example before. There was a girl that came to me and she knew I invested in Detroit. And she was like, listen, I bought this property from X person. She paid $30,000 for it. It was only worth 40. It needed a total rehab, 80, 90,000. It's impossible for her to get the money back, right? So, at this point, I gave her the course that I had at the time. I just said, listen, just take that and just sit with it. But there's nothing you can do right now outside of that market turning and the value just coming up, but it's Detroit. So I kind of knew where she bought it. That shit's not turning anytime soon. Okay. So you have a lot of people who have self-serving interests. And when they're constantly leading with the millions that you can make, that's another red flag, right? When you're coming into any venture with just solely money on your mind, I could tell you that there's going to be things that happen within that venture that's going to test you. It's going to test everything you thought you knew about yourself. All right. Let me teach one more thing and then we'll get into it. So understanding market cycles. Okay, this is important. This is something that nobody teaches in real estate. Real estate market cycles. Where we're headed to now, 08, 09, some of the biggest real estate investors took big hits. I don't care how much you underwrote, whatever. There was things that happened in the economy that affect everybody. So throughout that time in 08, 09, there was still people holding up the real estate market. That money was coming from where? South America, right? This is where all that influx of money coming from, and even Europe. So now you have to follow world currency. So there was a time that the euro was actually stronger than the dollar. Okay. And this is what people do. So if you really want to play the money game, you got to play an international game at the end of the day. So when the US dollar is strong, they're going overseas where they can get a lot more for their money. And then vice versa. And they're constantly moving this money around globally. So in the real estate market, same thing what happens. So when the United States is in distress, there could be other countries, so South America. And then you have to ask yourself, like, why was South America in such a good position at that time? So you follow it to at the time, there was a lot of restrictions happening in China. So a lot of the factories and production was moving from China to South America. Okay. So now you had this new surgence of wealth happening in South America. And that's what really built Miami to where it is now. If you want to be in real estate, you better study real estate cycles. Okay. You have to study real estate cycles. And the reason I'm telling you that, just think about it, common sense. If somebody's going to sell you a real estate course, do they even care where you live? Right? Do you think they made money in that particular city before? Probably not. Right? No one specializes in a course to say, hey, this is real estate only for Philly. Right? Then I would give that guy an opportunity to say, you know what? He has boots on the ground. He understands that market in and out. But I started to realize that these guys don't really live the life that they say they live. Okay? Because there's way more money in teaching during the pandemic than there was in anything else available to you out there. And that was the rise of the real estate teaching, because it was the first time that we had access to money. So during that time, I kind of sat out. I had the program ready. I could have unloaded that, but I just decided to just sit back and just take care of some other stuff personally. So understanding market cycles, two things, guys. They have to teach you how to analyze early, and then they have to teach you market cycles. But what they do is they prey on the emotions of people. Oh, you want to become a millionaire, passive income, make millions, flip houses, make 80, 90, 100,000. Sounds great. But that doesn't happen for everybody. Okay. So just give you a little bit of info on market cycles. Okay. Where do I start? Hold on. All right. Okay. So let's go with recovery. All right. This is the first market cycle. Some of the characteristics of recovery is the phase following a recession or a downturn. All right. Market conditions start to improve, but the signs of recovery are often subtle at first, and then property values are low. And then there's little new construction out there. This is the recovery phase. All right. Indicators, a decline in vacancy rate, stabilization of rental prices, and a slow increase in property sales. And then you have investor strategy. So a good time to buy a property is at low price right before the market fully recovers. So focus on undervalued property and distress sales. All right. So this is the recovery phase. Then the next phase we talk about is the expansion phase. So this is the market is growing with increasing demand for properties, leading to higher property value and rental rates at the same time. And then new construction activity picks up to meet the demand, right? And then one of the indicators is decreasing vacancy rates, increasing rents, and more construction projects. Economic growth and higher employment rates all support this phase of expansion, all right? So the strategy that you want to do when it's expansion is you want to invest in new development and value add property. All right. This is also a good time to improve like existing property to capitalize in raising your rents. All right. So you're adding more value to a property. All right. The next phase is going to be hyper supply. All right. This is when the market becomes oversaturated due to excessive construction and development. Supply begins to exceed demand, leading to what? Rising vacancy rates and slow rent growth, right? So you almost have to price the rents just to get anybody in there. One of the indicators is high level of new construction, rising vacancy rates, rental rates start to level off or decline. The strategy that you want to use in hyper supply is this: be cautious about new investments, focus on properties in strong locations, and consider selling assets that may become less profitable in this phase. All right. A lot of moving parts, guys. The last one is going to be the recession. All right. The key characteristics of this is the market experiences a downturn with declining property values and rents, high vacancy, and reduced economic activity characterized in this phase. All right. So some of the indicators would be increased vacancy rates, falling property values, declining rates, and decreased new construction. So here's a strategy here: avoid new investments unless you find a significant bargain. Focus on maintaining and managing existing properties efficiently, and look for distressed sales and prepare for the recovery phase. So out of 1, 2, 3, and 4, just drop in the chat which one you think we're in right now. What you got in there, champ?
I got 2 and 4.
2 and 4. Yeah. All right. So we're kind of in a weird pattern. 4 is probably the closest. Okay. The strategy in 4 is what I would urge anybody to do right now. Do not FOMO into something. Know the market that you're in. Understand the job market in the area, either what's coming, going. Right. That's important. Okay. And I think that's the part that they don't teach you is who's the end user? Who's the end buyer? Okay. What works in Philly may not work in Delaware. What works in Delaware may not work in DC. It's all specific to the area that you're investing in. All right. In these times, I can tell you that you have to get creative. All right. You have to get creative. Finding things on the MLS is done. In my research recently, and in the last probably 2 years, what I realized is once you have Silicon Valley and Wall Street in real estate, or once they touch anything, it's pretty much over. You can't negotiate with these guys. They're spending like nobody's business. They'll pay top dollar. Okay. They're able to buy large portfolios from banks. This is what's happening right now. This is why you're not seeing, and since the pandemic, they've been hiding a lot of things that used to go to open public, publicly traded, meaning tax lien sales, foreclosure sales, and things like that. You still haven't seen them come to market. And then you have to ask yourself, where are these properties? Because there's no way that if you tell me the pandemic hit in whatever year it hit, prior to that, there was an influx of properties that were already in foreclosure or short sale. There was a pause on the legal system. So that means moratorium, everything just stopped. No one had to pay anything. So as we open the course back up again, I'm thinking there's going to be a tsunami of properties hitting the market, but they never hit. So I registered last year for a tax lien sale that I bought. I remember one year I bought 3 properties in one day, and they might have equaled less than 60,000. Okay. This was my first purchases of real estate in Pennsylvania. So when I signed up for actually, I didn't even sign up for the tax lien sale. You had to pay, I think it was non-refundable $150. What I did was I pulled the list. The list only had 9 properties on there. So I had a friend who paid the money. Out of the 9 properties, can you guess how many of the properties actually went to sale? Anybody? Right, 0. So everybody that paid $150 to bid didn't get the money back, and no property came to sale from a tax lien sale. So now you have to ask yourself, where are all these properties? So what's happening right now with the banks having so much problems on the real estate side, because that's where a large majority of the banks funding goes to, is commercial real estate and things like that, depending on the lender. So what they're doing is they're turning to Wall Street and they're just taking the stuff off their books, right? Wall Street is buying these properties sight on scene. Okay, meaning they're just buying a portfolio, a mixed bag of stuff, and then they'll figure that stuff out later. So what Wall Street decided to do in last couple years, and this is why you see a lot of the rental market going through the roof. What they did was they suppressed the seller's market, right? Meaning there's no inventory. When there's no inventory, what happens to prices? They increase. So what do their books look like? If they bought all of these assets at a lower price, they're not even renovating them. They're not even open. They don't even know what they look like, right? But they're able to affect the balance sheet, okay, just by holding them. Okay, so they suppress the market. So what happens? The value of their portfolio increases without them having to do any work. Okay, the next thing is the ones that they could operate, they turned into rentals. So this is where, if you listen to Warren Buffett, he was like, listen, if I was an investor, I would only focus on buying single family homes. And he's right. And this is going to reign true forever. I don't like single family homes though. But he said this decades ago, right? Because what these guys do is they study market cycles. These guys create these market cycles. You understand? All of this stuff is concocted by man. So once you ride this wave, that's over. They'll short that wave, and then they'll come in, they'll catch that right back at the bottom again. And listen, these properties will turn hands from the same owner 10 times, and he'll profit every single time. What you have to realize is when these guys are, the traditional loans that we take out, we have to put them in our names personally. Even if it's an LLC, we still have to back those loans, right? Not for these guys. They can leave the key on the table and there's no personal recourse at all on those loans that they take out. So they can purchase a property now for $9 million. They can trade it up to the values about 10. They pull out the equity in it. Then the market turns on them. They give the property away and they could buy at a distress, knowing the cycle, pick it right back up again and run the same play back over and over and over again. This is what these guys do. Legal, yes. Moral, you be the judge of that. So when you suppress the market and there's no inventory, what happens? Rental rates go up. So we're kind of in all 4 phases of this market cycle right now, but it's all being manipulated by Wall Street. Understand? So now one of the other issues with understanding market cycles, okay, now you have to ask yourself, who's holding the majority of real estate in the world right now outside of Silicon Valley or Wall Street? So now you got to go to the baby boomers. All right. So that generation, our parents and things like that, they're the ones holding all the wealth. So of course your children can't afford to buy anything. You're not looking to sell anything right now. Now the baby boomers are getting rid of property and businesses and things like that. But that's going to be part of the great wealth transfer, right? Just whatever happens. So if you're blessed enough to have parents who have real estate or commercial real estate or whatever, they're cashing out lovely, right? Because that generation didn't really play the debt game like how we're playing it now. Okay, so a lot of these properties are free and clear. These people aren't over leveraged. So now we go back. I'm gonna tell you a personal story now. I remember studying the Detroit, Michigan housing market. All right. I knew no one in Detroit. I've never even been to Detroit. All right. What I did know is I knew of Dan Gilbert, right? And he was in Cleveland. And this is where I got my crash course in understanding the economics behind sports, players, and just how things could change. So when I went out to Cleveland on business, LeBron had just left to go to Miami. Everything looked desolate. Stores were closed, whatever. Steve, right, and being curious. Now we talked about the 5 C's of entrepreneurship, right? If you weren't on that call, here are 5 of the most important characteristic traits of a successful entrepreneur: curiosity, creativity, collaboration, courage, and compassion. Okay. So my curiosity led me to asking questions everywhere I went in Cleveland. And what they told me was, it was like when LeBron was here, every single one of these businesses were open. Okay. People were making money hand over fist. When he left, everything went down. Okay. So if you know the story about when LeBron left Miami to go back to Cleveland, what his team did was they went downtown Cleveland and they bought up the commercial real estate prior to him making that decision to go back to Cleveland. Understand? Manipulating the market for your own needs. Legal, right? And I'm not saying that's not immoral. That's a solid play right there. All right, because it's the freedom to do whatever at that point. So I don't have a problem with that play. So when LeBron gets back, what happens? Property values and everything increases, right? Everybody's back on. They sell. I'm sure they made a nice, pretty penny. They weren't interested in developing. They were just interested in buying distress and selling higher when they had a piece of information. So it's basically insider trading at the end of the day. Piece of information that could change circumstances for an area, right? That was only specific to Cleveland. So when I went to Detroit, I went with a backpack and I knew no one. I met one girl who was Asia. She was in construction. And I also connected with a friend the day before who told me he had a friend from New York that was out there, and I ended up connecting with that kid. So when you go to new towns, you have to ask questions, and then you have to be curious about things, and then you just have to have an innate feeling of what's around you. All right. So and then people in real estate, they'll tell you never invest outside of where you live. I don't agree with that. I'll be honest with you. I actually have more success outside of where I live than when it's close to me. Then on top of it, if you live in a market like New York or LA, does that mean that you'll probably never get into real estate because of the property values, right? Those aren't easy markets to penetrate. All right. So real estate, you can do real estate anywhere. You don't have to be, you have to be trained well, and you have to exhibit those characteristics of an entrepreneur at the end of the day. That's where I think people fall short. They don't realize that this is a business at the end of the day, right? It's not easy. It's not passive the way that people make it seem. So we understand, I just broke down market cycles. I just broke down the different ways of investing. All right. Now back to Detroit. So when I got to Detroit, she's touring me around. I'm hearing the history of the city, how it got there. I'm looking at the blueprint. It's easy to read. When you look at cities, you can pretty much form like a T, right? So usually you look at the focal point is going to be downtown. If your downtown's not strong, there's not much going on in that city. So when you look at the development, everything starts downtown. So when Dan Gilbert moved Quicken Loans to Detroit, Michigan, the headquarters, he was given the key to the city now. What they did for him was every employee that worked downtown, they gave them pretty much stipends. So basically they were paying for them to live downtown because you needed the bodies. And at that point, they attracted the commercial real estate started to build, restaurants started to come in. You had bodies to actually support the real estate. Eventually, after a year or two, what happens? When young couples are professionals, they want to have families, you don't live downtown, you move to the outskirts. So you start to form a T. right? You got to go north and then east and west. That's how it starts to move. So, of course, when new investors come somewhere, they want to go where? The hottest areas. For me, where there's smoke, there's fire. I didn't want to be involved in fix and flip areas. All right. So I said, take me to the worst part of Detroit. And they took me to the east side. The tourist part of Detroit, I'm on the east side. I'm looking, all I'm seeing is opportunity on the east side. All right. Then I got to a point where I didn't want to do fix and flips anymore. Right. And the reason I made that decision, when they're telling you to buy back the block, there's certain things that you set off when you're buying the house from grandma that's in distress. All right. And mind you, I started to ask questions of, okay, so why are these people losing their homes? Then you start to find out like they're losing a home over $800-900 in taxes, right, for the last 2 years. And I'm like, I'm not interested in taking from these people. And then what happens is when you start to fix these neighborhoods and you start to gentrify them, that's nothing more than moving the people out. You're not doing anything, right? It's raising the taxes. And Dre and I had this conversation about the opportunity zones. Okay, so years ago, I had the privilege of sitting in on a Forbes. They put on an event about the opportunity zone, and some of the biggest names were there. Even the people that created the opportunity zone, I didn't know what the opportunity zone really was fully. We just knew as people who invested in the inner city that there's this thing that the government, this map that was called the opportunity zone. And when you looked at it, they gave you tax incentives for investing in those areas. So I'm like, oh man, it's on. But then when I got there, it's like, no, you already have to have capital gains tax. So this was just a playground for the rich to be able to park money in the hood. And then after, you hold it for 5 years, this much off. 7-10 years, and you don't have to pay any taxes on it. So this is these guys moving around capital gains, meaning when you've made money on a real estate project before any sort of investment, you have this thing called capital gains. Capital gains is usually tax high, but in real estate, it allows you to put it in another vehicle, either the same type of real estate or one a bit larger. And then what you're doing, you're kicking the taxes down the road, right? So these white wizards figured out a way to say, hey, let's just create a law in the books. And this was under Obama administration. It did nothing for the hood. I'm gonna tell you that right now. It gave the hood no opportunities. These guys didn't develop the properties. They didn't offer jobs or anything. Okay. So what they did was after 10 years, they just cashed out. That's it. It was people, the wealthy people use real estate for store value, right? They're not using real estate to buy cars. They're not using real estate to fund their lifestyle. I'm not saying that you can't do it. I'm just telling you what some of the main reasons why wealthy individuals have real estate. And it's really for store value at the end of the day. So when I started seeing people teaching the culture about real estate, I'm like, but I'm not hearing none of the market cycles talked about. I'm not hearing none of the different ways to invest in real estate talked about, right? So I'm gonna bring Dre on now. Champ, you can pin Dre in.
Dre, you pin, you good?
I'm here.
All right, Dre, what's good? So Dre again is Dre's the in-house insurance guy for Skyton Academy. Dre's a friend. Dre's a student. You name it. Dre is Dre, right?
Appreciate it, Steve.
He's also a real estate investor coming from New York. He's invested in Delaware. I had a meeting with him the other day. He showed me around Wilmington and gave me a nice tour, right? A guy who's invested, a guy who's been through cycles. We have similar stories, right? And we have similar sentiment to how we feel about the market right now.
Absolutely.
I hate it.
It's trash.
I absolutely hate it. Everything about it. I'm blessed, but I hate it.
Yeah.
Right? You have to know how to manage your own house before you think you're going to put up other houses. This is not a game of Monopoly. I just got a call today. There's all sorts of weird shit happening at the properties. This window's broken. This frame was open. That door. You couldn't even imagine the calls that you get every day. And you know what they're going to tell you? They're going to tell you, go get a property management, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. When you invest in these neighborhoods, you are investing in the neighborhood. Yep. You understand? I have to take on energy that has nothing to do with me. Nothing. Then you got to hear the stories, right? The late rent, the work. So you have to know how to manage yourself, manage people, right? And I always tell investors, like, playing with single family homes is like playing with fire, because if that one tenant doesn't pay, you're on the hook for that mortgage. right? This is why I like commercial, meaning more than 4, because I could afford to keep a couple vacancies here and there and not be so pressed about things. But again, and the other thing I like too is when you're managing multiple doors with one roof, guess what? When my roof goes bad, I'm changing one roof.
Yeah.
Right? What people don't realize about real estate is there's this thing called CapEx expenditures. And those are like the biggest spendings that you may have. I know guys that buy these little North Philly situations for the low. Bro, the minute you got to change the roof, right? Deal with a major plumbing issue where you got to dig up outside. We're talking about 10,000, 15,000. That can wipe out your, and these guys are walking away with what, $500 a month in the pocket,
6,000
right?
6,000 for the year before expenses.
6,000 for the year, right? That's real estate. That's the game that you guys want to play. This is the part that they're not telling you. For 6,000, you can have the entire thing wiped out. And then what else do they tell you? Pull out 75%, or back then it was up to 80% leverage.
And go buy another one.
They're going to buy another one, right? They keep telling you, keep buying, keep buying.
Yeah.
Tell me some of the challenges that you're meeting right now. As seasoned as you are, tell me some of the challenges.
So, I mean, so just a little background, right? I've been in real estate since 2005, right? So we're approaching, next year's 20 years, right? I'm in the business in all of the seats possible. And I got into the owner seat in 2017. Well, 2016, I bought my primary residence. 2017, I bought my first 2 investments. And coming from a property management background and a finance background, I knew that buying one house by itself was a roll of the dice. Like it's a recipe for disaster if something goes wrong. Like you said, if you have a single family home and that one tenant doesn't pay rent, you're paying the mortgage for them, right? It's no longer a passive investment like they like to sell everybody. So out the gate, I was like, I'm not buying one house. I have to buy at least as many as possible. So I had a very solid 9-to-5, making almost 6 figures a year. I love the whole work model and invest model. That is my model. That was how I got into real estate. That's how I wanted to stay forever. I wasn't the guy that was telling you, let me go buy some real estate so I can quit my 9-to-5. That is not me. I'm like, I'm going to keep my 9-to-5, pay my bills, and all this investment money is my fun money. Taking vacations, I'm buying whatever I want to buy. Life is good. So in 2017, I bought 2 properties. And I closed December 16th, 2017. I closed on 2 on the same day. December 25th, I get a phone call from the tenant. And the phone call went just like this. Hey, it's cold in my house and I don't know why the heat's not working. I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? It's Christmas morning. The tenant doesn't have any heat. I live 3 hours away. And now what do I do? Because I invested in Delaware. I live in New York. So this was my litmus test out the gate going into this. And I just to give you guys a little context of what I'm used to, I worked for a property management company on a development side. And as a property manager, I managed 4,500 apartments, 4,500 units, long distance. So my portfolio was in Manhattan, all up the West Side, and in Buffalo and Niagara Falls and Rochester. I never saw any of these properties, but I was managing them. So I was used to the distance. Here's what I wasn't used to. When you get a phone call and I'm at work, I call the super, I call whoever I got to call, they got to go deal with the actual headache, right? They called me because something's wrong. I call somebody else, they got to go fix it. When I got that phone call Christmas morning, there was nobody else for me to call. Now I got to deal with the problem. So how do I get the boiler back on Christmas Day, one, right? So I got to find a handyman or a company to go out the Christmas morning, which is obviously an emergency repair. How much is that going to cost me? How much is it? That's to get them to the property. How much is it to fix the issue? And how long is it going to be down for? These are the problems I'm worried about day one, right? I barely own this thing for 10 days. Luckily, I was able I had some family resources. So I made a call to a handy guy. He went there, checked the boiler. Luckily for me, the boiler didn't go down. The control board went out. So it was a small thing to fix, maybe $800. He fixed it. Boiler's back on. Life is good. Everybody have a happy new year. I'm happy for the next 10 days. That was my litmus test getting into real estate. Nobody told me or could have told me that this was going to happen 10 years into my first purchase. So I've been in the ups and downs, the craziness. I mean, I had a tenant's mom set one of my properties on fire, like actual fire. The property's burning down. We had to call the fire department. I've had leaks where the tenant above flooded their bathroom. Tenant below has got a waterfall in their apartment. I've had homeless people living in my units, breaking in through windows. I've had drug addicts having parties in the back of my units. I've had I've had a lot of things happen over the years, right? And granted, I'm owning properties through, because I got into my property 2017. So I got in before COVID hit. COVID hit to change a lot of the financial landscape. So there was a lot of equity that got accumulated in a really short period of time. And I thought, because this is what the nomenclature is for everyone, if you got equity, take your equity out of your property and go reinvest that money into something else. That's what they teach you. I'm going to tell you guys what that looks like on the back end, right? I went and refied all my properties in 2021, going into 22. Liquidated a lot of cash. My bank account was super flush. Life was good. When I bought my properties, though, I didn't have any debt on them. So it was very low, very minimum what I had. So when I had an issue, it wasn't that big of a problem, because if a tenant's not paying rent, or you got a unit turnover and you got to clean it up and get a new person in there, if it's vacant and you're not collecting the rent, it's okay. It's not ideal, but it's okay, because you don't have a big mortgage on a property. When you have a big mortgage and you have a vacancy, now you've got a problem, because you have to make that mortgage payment. You don't own that property. The bank does. You're the property manager for the bank. So if you don't make that mortgage payment, they're going to come knocking on your door. I made it through all those cycles. And recently, now I'm talking about within the past 2 months, I went from having no headaches to 7 roofs leaking at the exact same time. 7 different properties, 7 roof leaks all at once. Within a matter of 4 days, I had 7 different roof leaks. Now, when all the gurus online are telling you, you want to do the burn method, you want to pull all the equity out of strip your property for all the equity, you want to go buy another property, that sounds good, but the part that they're not talking about is, where are your capital reserves? What are you holding aside for the rainy day? Do you have credit available to you? Do you have cash in the bank? Because when I got hit with 7 roof leaks in 1 week, I have to go find the money. Right? So I have to call. The tenants do not care about what's going on with your money. They don't care about them not paying their rent. They don't care about what they didn't do. All they want to know is, are you going to fix this leak? Because if you don't fix the leak, they're calling the city on you. They're calling the Department of Buildings. They're calling Section 8, because I have a lot of Section 8 tenants. They're calling whoever they can call to get this thing fixed today. So now I got to scramble and get money together to fix all of these leaks. And guess who gets paid on the back end? I do, hopefully. Because now I got to wait for all this money I just spent out in CapEx to come back in the form of rent. And as you know, if I'm spending $70,000, none of my tenants are paying $70,000 in rent. They're paying $1,000 maybe, right? 200 here, 600 here. They're paying all their little pieces, but that doesn't fill back up my little savings account that I had to deplete to make sure that they have roofs over their head and that their lights are working and that everything's fine in their property. So there's got to be a real understanding. And I know, Steve, you guys do this very well. And I preach this when I'm teaching students as well as just friends and family. You got to tell everyone the full scope of what everything looks like. Don't just give them the highlights. Give them the downside, because if they don't know what they're walking into, they're going to get blindsided. And as one of my favorite quotes that Mike Tyson says, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. How do you take that punch and what do you do next? So, I mean, luckily for me, I've been able to weather all of the storms. I'm going through a little mini storm right now where I'm sort of, repositioning my portfolio with tenants and getting the right people in there. But you have to be prepared for the things that you just don't know. And that's just a part of being an owner and an investor. And it's no fun at the top, right? You're by yourself. There's no one to look to. You got to make sure your money is right. And if you don't budget and have your house in order, don't go look for another house. That's just what it is. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, it's gonna fall apart real quick. And it's a house of cards at that point. And it takes down everything that was built up before it. So don't lose your own house with a rental property.
So listen, tell them the story about entering that purchase you had, and you didn't realize it
On
was
my budget?
in the right.
The one that my budget got blown up. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I had about 8 single family townhouses. So just so you guys have an idea, Wilmington's market in the city of Wilmington, like their downtown, is very similar to Baltimore in terms of the look is their townhomes. That's what their neighborhoods are. It's a bunch of townhomes tied together. So I had about 8 of those that have accumulated over probably maybe 3 or 4 years in a short window. And I said, I want to get out of the townhomes. I want to get into an apartment building. So I started out on my journey looking for an apartment building. I came across a 5-unit building from a wholesaler, and the numbers look great. You know, the numbers are great. And I can go through numbers if you want me to go through numbers with them, Steve. I'm buying a 5-unit building. Purchase price was about $140,000, and I estimated my rehab to be about $180,000. Now, when I did my numbers, the property value once I'm done fixing it up should have been worth around $450 to $550. That's where I estimated I was going to be. So I would have been all into it for around $320, give or take, and I should have had like another $150,000 worth of equity. The day after I closed on the property, I had visitors that came by the property. One of the visitors was the fire department. One of the visitors was the Department of Buildings. The fire department walked in the door and told me, hey, this place has a bunch of violations on it, which I was aware of before I closed because we pulled title. But to clear those violations, you got to do X, Y, and Z. X, Y, and Z was I had to install a sprinkler system in the building. For anyone who does not know, a sprinkler system is not a cheap thing. All out the gate, it's $40,000 base for a sprinkler system, not including tying it into the city main water system. To tie it into the city, you got to dig up the street, which the owner has to pay for. You got to run the line from the building to the water main, which the owner has to pay for. And then you got to hook it up and then put everything back how it was, which the owner has to pay for. So out the gate, we're talking about $50,000 to $75,000 for just a sprinkler system. The Department of Buildings walks in with a friend. They said there's some violations here which need to get fixed, but the friend was the historical surveyor for the neighborhood. So when I saw this friend who told me, yeah, he's definitely not a friend, Jerry. When I saw this person walk in the door and they're like, hey, we're so happy that, we have an investor that's willing to fix up this property. And, it's been a blight in the neighborhood for a very long time because the building was pretty much used as a drug house. They had tenants in there selling heroin and crack and all this other stuff. So they were in and out of this place. And to give you a little bit more context, the building is across the street from a Catholic school, kindergarten through 8th grade. It's directly across the street. And next to the school is the church that owns the school. So they were doing drugs on a little kids block, essentially. So when the historic manager came by, he's like, we're so happy to see you build this thing up. We just wanted to make a few notes for you because the property is located in a historic neighborhood. I had no idea when I closed that the building was on a historic block. And what happened is I showed Steve when he came by, my building is two properties down from where the historic area starts. So if I was 3 houses down, I wouldn't have been historic. Where I was 3 houses in, it's historic for the next like 4 or 5 blocks in either direction. So what that meant was when they came by and they took a look, they're like, well, how much rehab are you going to do? And what are you going to change? I'm going to change the windows. We're doing walls. We're doing bathrooms. We're doing this. We're doing that. We're doing doors. Okay, fantastic. We're so happy to hear that. So just so you know, if you touch any of the windows, you got to change all of the windows. My budget for windows was about $300 for the window and the installation per window. I had 42 windows in this building. To put, if anybody wants to do the math, you can do the math. 300 times 42. That was my budget. When they told me this and they told me what type of window I had to buy and where I had to get it from, the window by itself was $700 before the installation. So my contractor didn't even tell me what the price was yet to install it, but the window alone was $700. That tripled my budget for just the windows. So estimate 900 times 42. That's how much money I had to spend. All in, after everybody got done telling me what I had to do and what I couldn't get around, my budget went from $180,000 to $315,000 to finish the project. I already bought it. I'm already in. I already got my hard money lender that gave me my 180. I already put my 25% down payment. I got to come up with the other $100 and something thousand out of my own pocket to make this deal work, or I'm gonna lose the property or I got to sell it. This is what they don't tell you about real estate, right? I haven't seen a course that talks about historic neighborhoods and what happens if you get into a jam like that, right? How do you get out of it, right? So I had the wherewithal, and time and God was on my side. So I had the money to pay for it out of pocket, but without that happening, I would either have to go raise the money or I would have to stop renovation and just sell the property where it was and maybe get my money back, but I probably would have took a loss. I think Steve and I talked about this as well. Outside of just having your numbers in place, right? You got to be able to. Oh, Steve, we were talking about it the other day. It was in regards to you got to make sure you know your numbers for one. Oh God, it's gonna come back to me now. I completely lost my train of thought when I was just telling you guys that story. But you have to be prepared for the unexpected. 100%. You got to make sure that you got your reserves in place, and you got to be ready for the unexpected. It's a hard business. It's not easy, and the longer you're in it is the more I now see why the OGs of the business, they're like, I don't like debt. I don't like being over leveraged. If I can buy it cash, I'm gonna buy it cash, because at the end of the day, no one's coming looking for me to give them money when I didn't receive my money. It's a tough game you got to play. It's a juggling system that you don't want to be in. It's not for the weak at all. It's a lot of stress and it's a lot of headaches. But long term, it's a great wealth creator. I actually ended up writing a book about it. I'm not sure if you guys can see it or not. I wrote a book about it, about what you need to start getting into the business, to the mindset you need to have, because the first chapter is about mindset. You need to know what type of investor you are and who you want to be and how you want to own your properties before you start buying anything. But that's my little story about the trials and tribulations of being a landlord, long distance or otherwise. Everyone has the same story if you've been in it long enough. So you just got to make sure you don't lose your shirt in a bad deal, and don't rush into it. FOMO is not a good thing when it comes to buying real estate at all.
And listen, we could talk about every aspect of real estate. It wouldn't be enough time, right?
Yeah.
So tell them the story about the running toilet bowl. And if anybody knows, when your toilet bowl at home, if you rent, please, if your toilet bowl at home is making noise, like by itself, on and off throughout the day, that's a running toilet bowl, meaning there's water that's being lost and someone's paying for that. So if it's you, take care of it as quick as possible. If it's your landlord, please call that dude as quick as possible. Tell them the story about your water bill.
Yeah, so I had a tenant, Section 8 tenant, living in a property. She's been in there about same building, actually, that same building that I went over budget on. She's living there for about 2 years. And towards the end of her tenancy, she started to fall behind on her rent. Her portion wasn't much. She just, I guess, decided she didn't feel like paying it anymore. And the Wilmington City changed how they billed you. They used to bill you quarterly, then they started billing you monthly. They want to go online and then send you mail. It's a whole mess of how they're doing things. Long story short, we finally got the water bill for the building, and the water bill 1 month was $800, and we couldn't figure out why the water bill was so high, because on average the water bill was about $250 for the entire building. We got an $800 water bill, then we get a $1,400 water bill. Then that third water bill was $5,000. And we could not figure out, we're tracing the entire building, trying to figure out what's going on. And when we finally was able to get back to doing the accounting for the tenant apartments, because that particular building, I sub-metered everybody. So everyone has their own individual water meter for their unit. The tenant that was on the third floor, her toilet was running for months. She didn't say anything. She didn't talk to anybody. She just left it alone. She also wasn't paying her rent, which is probably why she wasn't complaining. When I finally got a hold of her, I'm like, your toilet is running? Oh, yeah, it's been like that for a few months now, but we didn't think anything of it because we didn't have any water anywhere in the apartment. But it's still running inside the toilet. So when we ended up billing her for the water bill, her rent now is $5,000. She's like, I'm not paying that. She goes to Section 8. We explain the story to Section 8. Section 8 tells her it's her responsibility. She's like, I'm not paying it. We have to go through the process of evicting her. So we evict her, which means we no longer collect the rent, and we have a back bill with the water company that we now as the owner has to pay, and there's nowhere to turn to. We got to deal with it, right? So I don't care what they tell you. There's no vetting process that would have prepared us for that tenant not telling us about her water bill. There's nothing you can do about that. You have to be on top of your tenants and have hopefully a good relationship with them, because that comes down to people management, which is the biggest part of property management. You got to manage the people right. But yeah, so I get stuck with a $5,000 water bill, which now I got to pay off from the rents from the property. And maybe one day it'll come back to me, but I'm going to sue someone who's on a Section 8 subsidy for what kind of money? I don't really see me getting that money back from that tenant, but it is what it is, right? So that's a loss I got to write off on my taxes, and I got to just keep it pushing. I got to suck it up and on to the next one. It's a wild game, man.
So when I had that one project in Detroit, when I closed in December of 2020, and I started construction in January, February, and then what happened in March? The world shut down. COVID. You know what every city was doing? They were going around, you couldn't go to work, right? It's what they're telling people. You can't make a livelihood now. Now, my contractors have their own team. If they decide to want to go work in a property that's vacant, they're not putting anybody at risk. So they were driving around the city of Detroit, and they were giving out tickets for people who were working on properties at that time, right? So we had to work under the radar. These guys were catching COVID. I was not hearing from these guys. So there's a lot of protocol I put in place after COVID for things I didn't know about, right? So just imagine a contractor dies on you. What would you do? He's midway. It's happening. Right?
It's happened to me.
Right.
It's happened to me.
So the one thing, you better hope that you don't give up money so easily, and that there's enough for you to, not a great thing for anybody to die, but again, it's your bit. You got to keep going at that point. But where's the recourse now? There is none. You know what I'm saying? These are individuals that you're dealing with. So I went through that cycle with plumber, electrician. I mean, these guys were there today, gone tomorrow, didn't hear from them for weeks. This is what I was going through the entire pandemic, trying to get this project finished. Guys were like, I was sick, then they were in the hospital. Like craziness, things that no one could foresee that happening during the pandemic. So what would it took me, mind you, I got a loan out on this place, right? The monthly payments, nobody took a break on that. There was no bank that said, oh, don't worry about the mortgage at all. They needed those those payments monthly. So it extended my situation 6 months. But if I didn't buy that property right, it just wouldn't have worked out. Yeah. Right.
And a little PSA, I don't want us to miss this part, because you spoke about the contractors. I don't care who you are, if you're working on your own primary home or on an investment property, don't ever give any contractor 50% of the money up front. Don't give them all the money up front. You need to pay these contractors on a draw system. They get paid when they complete a portion of the work, period. Because if you get a scammer one, they're going to run off with your money. And if you get in just a weird situation, like a contractor dies on you, you're not getting that money back. So you got to pay them in pieces to get the jobs done on schedule and on time. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, contractors are notoriously bad with money, period. They are always robbing Peter to pay Paul. So don't give them all your money up front, because they're going to hurt you somewhere.
Yeah, that's an important part. That's an important part. You got to pull it out my hands, like death grip on it. Yeah, guys, it's, just to tell you where I'm at personally with this whole shit, and I'm so close to just selling everything at this point. This is what business is about, right? I had this vision in real estate to say, you know what? Let me buy these properties. Let me get them paid off. So when the kids leave, this is kind of their gift, right? You have income producing property. They have the freedom to do whatever they want without compromising themselves and their time, right? But the more I start to look at it, I'm just like, I don't know about that model so much. So that was my biggest why coming into it. right? So when you have people on here tugging at your emotions of just wanting to make money, you got to have a deeper why than that, especially to get into this game. You have to come to the table with a business plan, and you have to, I've just always come from the school of, I'm going to focus on everything that can go wrong. And once I could solve all that, or at least acknowledge that it could happen, I'm fine. Right? Most people hate the way that I operate. It drives them crazy. But I'm like, listen, this is part of the game. So this is why I probably wouldn't have the most successful, even in naming my training course, it was like why I wouldn't invest in real estate. No, that's the title of it.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you want to move forward after hearing everything I said, I'll work with you at that point.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But the glitz and glamour part is there's no problem, getting paid, rent, and great, but there's far more days in between that rental payment at the top of the month. And you are of service to these people. And you could easily say, oh, Steve, just grab a property manager. But the thing with the property management is if you don't have experience in managing property managers, tell me something. If I have $1,000 rent roll, how do you think they make a business off of 10%? $100? And they have people in the offices picking up phone calls? So then I had to ask myself, how do property management companies make money? And they make money off the service issues, right? They make money off the service issues. So when they're calling somebody out and it's costing 50, they're billing you maybe 150. So you have no control over that. So I opted out of property management. I don't need somebody collecting my rents. Everything's electronical. I don't need anybody calling someone and I never hear about the situation in real time. So what I do is I have my own service people. So the same electricians, the same plumbers that I had in there, I keep those guys on call. And then I have a maintenance guy who kind of does a little bit of everything. He's usually the cheapest rate. And then I just go through my Rolodex at that point. It doesn't really take me much time. Then when you do a decent renovation, you're good, right? But most of these guys are teaching you what? To buy the lowest grade material to save money. And you think that's profitable, but not realizing that it's going to cost you more in the end.
Yeah.
So I never knew the true difference between a $99 toilet bowl versus the $250. There's a huge difference, right? And this goes for all material after that. Kitchen cabinets, soft close versus the ones that aren't. I don't have cabinets off the hinge. Understand? And when you guys are going after these 3 bedrooms and up, you're going to have what in there? Younger children. And a lot of them, they wild, on the renter side. Now, when you live and you have your personal home, you probably won't let the children treat it like that, right? Because you have to be in charge of fixing these things. And Section 8 is not always on your side. They don't care who broke. We know who broke it. I had one tenant the other day, crack window, right? 2 stories from the crack window. It's a double pane window. So when you crack the outside, the inside is fine, right? So the outside of the window gets cracked. How did it get cracked? This lady got into an argument with the crack dealer and he needed his money, right? So he came and destroys the property. Now it's my problem, okay? Now here's where it's at. I was like, listen, you're going to pay for the crack window. I'll give you the price and then we'll work it off. However, I don't care how long it takes you to pay. I just need you to be accountable for this. I didn't give it to you like this. The crack window comes back again. She has it's the only unit there where there's children living. It's the 2-bedroom unit. So she calls. She's like, Steve. Well, she didn't call. She's hard of hearing, so we have to text. Or if she calls, there's an interpreter on the other line. So she's like, Steve, there's a lot of cold air coming in the room, and it's my children's room. And I'm like, holy shit, what happened? She was like, yeah, you remember that crack window? It's coming in through there. And I'm like, but it's double pane. So I send my glass dude over. And when he goes over there, he's like, Steve, you know how the windows, there's double window. You can open it from the top and then the bottom.
Yeah.
She opened it from the top, never locked it. So the draft was coming in. It had nothing to do with the crack window.
Yeah.
So let me and I'm not telling you that everybody with Section 8 is on this, but I'll be honest with you. If you're living on Section 8 and you grew up on Section 8 and you have, there's a particular pattern that I've been seeing with Section 8 tenants. And you can't really troubleshoot with a lot of them, right? So she be the same one to tell me, hey, this light doesn't work and I was like, listen, just go to the breaker panel, and just, you know, reset hit the switch,
breaker,
whichever, right. Can't get her to do anything. And this is all the tenants. So I got to pay my guy. Listen, every service call is at least $150. Every single service call, whether it takes them 2 seconds or 10 minutes, 10 hours.
Yeah.
I have to call my guy in there. He's like, Steve, it was just a breaker. Right. So now I had to pay $200 on the call. And that's just because I value the relationship.
Yeah.
Right. I don't like penny pinching guys who I need, especially when I need them.
Yep.
You know, I may say, come on, like, give me a little break. He might have knocked off $50 or whatever.
Yep.
But I, using that as training. And these are all things that I'm adding to my manual.
Yep.
Right. So when they tell you, oh, just get the Section 8, oh, it's guaranteed money. I'm like, stop telling people Section 8 is guaranteed money. Here's another story that you guys might not realize if you're not a Section 8 landlord. During the Trump administration, anytime that you hear government shutdown, what they're doing is this is how they negotiate. Right. So when they're up till wee hours in the morning trying to get that budget, everybody's just putting in their stuff. They got to do favors for people. It got so bad with Trump that they went into the Section 8 payments, ceased them. So there was landlords nationally that weren't receiving. Dre, were you part of that landlord that wasn't receiving?
I missed 2 months.
Did you have to pay your mortgage in those 2 months?
I sure did. They don't care about government shutdown. They care about their mortgage payment.
So when these guys are telling you that this money is guaranteed, it's not. Trust me when I tell you that. They have made so much adjustments to that program. They also have been putting in more money into the program since COVID. But there's a lot of that COVID money that's being backed out now. I've worked with third-party programs before. You have to check the books on these programs that you work with. You understand? You have to know the population of people that they're working with. All right. So I'm telling you guys, when you're working, and then you have to understand the class of buildings and areas that you're buying in. There's a reason why these properties are distressed and they're going for what they're going for, is because you have to deal with the craziness. So I always said, I never want to buy a property somewhere where I don't feel comfortable sleeping in. So I made sure my renovations were nice. I put that theory to test one time. I went to Detroit. I didn't rent a hotel. I said, I'm here for a couple nights. I'm going to stay in my property. I had an empty place, bought a little air mattress. So I'm going to thug it out. Oh, I did not sleep the entire night. I was it was the neighborhood. It wasn't my property.
It wasn't no property.
Yeah,
it's outside. Yeah, I know.
Between drag racing and what had to have been gunshots.
Yeah.
Right. And mind you, when I first bought the property, you're looking at, there's bullets in the windows. One of the first properties I had under contract, while I was under contract in Detroit negotiating, it went from having a rent roll to not having anybody to then being on fire, all within months of negotiating this thing.
Crazy.
Okay. So there's so much that goes with it. No one is telling you the truth when it comes down to real estate investing.
Yeah.
No one.
Yep.
Yeah, there's stories for days. So I just wanted to just drop those gems on you guys just to kind of let you know, like, listen, I'm back. But what I'm realizing with this market right here is you have to create opportunity in real estate. And that's all I'm interested in right now. And real estate is not just about fix and flipping. And fix and flips are great. Don't get me wrong. They're ways to build capital for sure. Right. But there's no guarantee in what you can get back from the actual property. So the last one I did was in Pennsylvania. I made a killing on that one. Right. I made a killing. It was a nice cleanup. I made such a killing that we got to the day before closing. I realized that there was a leak in the basement, which turned out to be a little bigger than whatever, but this family needed to move in. Okay. I ended up giving a $15,000 credit to waterproof. I was going to waterproof the whole basement. It would have cost me probably 10. Right. I said, you know what? I'm done with this project. How much do you guys want? I got quotes. You got everything from high to low. And I couldn't honor the low quote because that was a guy that I had that I've done business with. So I know if you're coming as a basic homeowner, you're not going to get the prices I get.
Right.
So we had to meet somewhere in the middle. $15,000 credit. To some people, that's the difference between profit and no profit. Right? I could have easily swept that water under the rug and just decided to just leave it for them to find it.
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't have found it.
Yeah.
And it was only because it rained the day before, but there was no signs of that the entire time I was doing the renovation.
Yeah.
But like you said, when I could almost guarantee when you had all that water damage, It was from the same storm that everybody else had water damage from. I had water in my house.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? In different places. So those are the parts that, those are the things that you can't control. And none of this stuff is insurable, right?
I mean, so I'm the insurance guy, right? I'll tell you how that works, right? You
Mhm.
can try to put an insurance claim in, right? The first thing is you have to prove that this was from some type of exterior force, like a tree fell on my house.
Mhm.
You got to prove that it wasn't just from wear and tear on the roof, because if it's wear and tear, it's not covered. If it is from a tree falling and a tornado or something wild like that, and your insurance covers it, you now have to pay the deductible to even put in the insurance claim. So you're gonna spend money before you even get to the point of how much it's gonna cost you to fix it. So sometimes, and the third thing is when you do that, be prepared that you're gonna get dropped from your insurance company. It sounds crazy, but insurance companies don't like to pay.
Right.
So once they do pay out, you're on a list and you get dropped. That happened to me in 2021 when we had I forgot what storm that was. It rolled through like September of 21, and we had the whole East Coast that got flooded. Like it wasn't Sandy, but it was one of those type of storms. And there was a section of Wilmington that was underwater. I mean, I had 8 feet of water in a property. The whole basement's covered, and then part of the first floor. I mean, I have to put in a claim through my flood insurance, and they paid it out, but I got to pay my deductible. And right after they paid me and I got everything fixed, they dropped me. I had to go find new coverage. They don't want to pay.
Kev, what you got?
Steve, my battery's
Hello?
running.
You got me?
All right. Yeah, Kev, I got you. Kev, you there?
I think he went back on mute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
We got you.
All right, cool. Yeah. Can y'all talk about dealing with HOAs? And like I have a sister who's going through it right now because the HOA didn't pay their water bill, and they like in arrears for like $2 million or some shit.
Oh, yeah,
And then
in a building. Yeah.
then they put an assessment on her, talking about they gotta upgrade all the pipes.
Yep.
Or the city won't give them no kind of credit for the water, and the city gonna shut down the water and all this and that.
Yep.
So do y'all have any experience with HOAs?
Yeah, I do. So my wife and I bought a condo. That was our first real estate investment. And this was before the downturn in 08, 09, right? So what you don't know about the condos is that HOA situation. So I can remember that downturn didn't hit us until about 2010. That's when the ripple effect started to like come into our household. We ended up moving from the condo. That's when I told you I started Airbnb. The day we left to move out, there was an assessment that came down on the building. All right. So when you're in these HOAs, before you purchase anything, you have to look at the books. Right. This is something that they didn't teach us. You figure you're buying a brand new condo, shouldn't be any issues. But now they want to do upgrades to the hallway, paint, the roof needed to be done over. You're starting to see the problems now are coming. Mm-hmm. So then the assessment came out, and it was about $10,000 a unit, or you pay whatever your unit square footage is or whatever. So I think it was like $10,000. Some HOAs, they want the money up front because they don't have it to float it and to bill you. Luckily for them, they had it to float to bill us. So that was kind of our first introduction to the HOA situation. Then I've also noticed that there were condo buildings that were going into foreclosure because of mismanagement of the money. So where I live at right now, even though it's single family home, we still have a community. So there is a HOA wrapped around it. This shit is like living in a college dorm. They be clocking me for, if I'm driving fast and I don't even drive fast, but when you look a particular way and they see a certain car, it just looks fast. So it's fast. So you just have people in your business, right? They'll walk on your property and tell you gotta power wash this and paint that, like paint your deck. It has to be a particular color. So there's a lot of rules and regulations that come with HOAs. You have to just understand how to work with them, right? The problem I'm seeing historically now with HOAs is they're hiring companies that aren't local, right? So these are big national companies now that are treating you not like a homeowner. They're just treating you like it's like a product. You know, I'm like, listen, last I checked, I bought this shit. You know, and I get it, right? Because you know, they want to keep the uniformity. We have stucco. They don't want you putting in vinyl windows. So the cost of things increase when you have to make changes. You know, so I'll follow those rules, no problem. But there's so many nuances. So if you're going to buy a property with the HOA, you have to look at the books, right? They have to disclose them to you. And most people don't even read those books at the end of the day. And you can see a lot of these HOAs are in some problems. So like Dre said, if you don't have the money put aside for big CapEx stuff, then you got to figure out where to get the money from. Understand? So it's unfortunate what they're going through, but then you have to ask yourself, how did it get this far?
$2 million is a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
That's a long time of a problem.
Right. So that was mismanaged. So even with our HOA, you know, I see certain things that they need to do. And when they bring in, you know, certain companies to do the landscape and all that other stuff, you definitely want to be on the board one way, shape, or form. Right. Or at least stay close to what's happening. But when I look at some of the bills of how they're being charged, the HOA is making money too, because there's no way they're passing the true costs along to you. And I know real estate. I'm like, yo, there's no way that this thing is going to cost us $30,000 to sweep this. Right. So now the HOA is a big business, but they're losing the appeal of wanting to live in the HOA because it's all systematic now. I'm even to the point now where my HOA is running an AI bot to talk, which I don't have a problem with. It's just pretty cool. Like all I have to do is just type a message and it'll just transcribe it and get everything done. But the downside to it is there's no human attached to the HOA now, right? Everything's turned into an algorithm. So HOAs, you have to be very careful, guys. When the roof goes on an HOA building, everybody's roof goes. Fortunate for us, our HOA, our houses aren't attached, so everything's detached. So if my neighbor needs to change his roof, that's his problem. We just have a common area that we share, right? So when the driveways need to be, you know, resealed or coated, that's everybody. You know, when landscaping needs to be done or trees needs to be cut down, that's everybody. But anything for the individual house, that's the only HOAs I would mess with moving forward. But after this one, I'm done with those. I'm done with those. But again, I wake up, I don't have to shovel snow. You know, so there are some pluses to just having, you know, especially when you get older. These are good for people who just aren't with the maintenance, right? My grass is cut. You know, everything's just done for you, you know, when it comes down to HOAs. But the dark side to the HOA is that, and I've noticed there's been a lot of condo buildings that have foreclosed on. So can you imagine you're going to foreclosure for something that don't have nothing to do with you? And then the other thing too with HOAs is when other people go into foreclosure, it affects your home price too. It sets a new comp at the end of the day. So this is back to buying, you know, and I actually live in one of the top zip codes in the world. So our zip code does the best in recessions, right? Historically, nationally, you know, so these are and I didn't buy it with that intention. This is something I learned after. So I'm like, shit, there's so much to learn about this game.
Yeah, unfortunately, Kevin, in regards to from what I've seen a lot of those type of issues on the finance side when I was doing mortgages for residential stuff. There's not much that you guys can do as the owner outside of suing the HOA, the management company, because if they really mismanage the funds for that long, you guys can't. There is no recourse. They have to come up with the money somehow, some way. And it sort of leaves all the owners in a really bad spot because you either have to end up selling your place to get out of it, or you guys have to come with the money.
What you got, Kev?
You're still on mute.
So what about, you know, I'm thinking you gotta go after the title company because they were supposed to do the check. Like she only had the spot for close to 2 years now, and she been paying her thing. But the title company, there was no discovery. All they did was look up that the water bill was being paid by the HOA, but they didn't look at the HOA's books.
They wouldn't have though. They would have never looked at that. What state is this co-op in?
This in College Park and in Atlanta.
In Atlanta. Yeah, the responsibility of the research is on the buyer. So I mean, is Georgia a lawyer state for closing or no? Dude, Georgia's one of those states where the real estate agents can close, right? They don't have
The
to have a
agent,
lawyer.
no, but I'm
Yeah,
saying the title company is supposed to make sure that everything is clear, though.
they was clear.
And they're supposed to guarantee their.
The title, they guarantee the title itself, not the water bill. That's responsibility of the HOA. They would have never caught that because unless there was a lien against the building when they closed, they're not going to see it. That's what they would have picked up on a title report is the actual lien. But if the city didn't put a lien on them, they're not going to know.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And when they're doing the title check for the water bill, they're checking for that individual unit, not for the entire building. Just for their unit is what they're looking for.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why she was like, well, it was water bill appears to have been paid, but it wasn't.
I hate to say this, but I would talk to a lawyer and find out if you guys have that agent where they can close. Find out if the agent has any responsibility in providing due diligence to the buyer when they're closing on that property. Because in New York, we have to use a lawyer, and the lawyer would have caught that.
Got it. No, the agent said, well, it ain't on me.
Yeah, that's not the answer. They got insurance for that. They need to go figure that out.
Yep, no doubt. All right, guys. Thanks for that.
Yeah, that's a tough one, guys. And, same thing with these closings. Even if you have attorneys, they're not telling you anything but to sign. Listen, the attorneys are the biggest haters at the closing table, right? They get paid the least, and they see some big ass checks floating across the table. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, these guys make mistakes. I haven't had a closing that hasn't given me back a refund. You just get this refund check in the mail, and I'm just like, this ain't a good system. I know that these guys are overbilling people. This has happened. And I mean by a lot. Yep. So again, this is all part of, there's this game and it's a multi-layered system and you just have to know how to navigate the situation. And the permits, the construction, that's a whole nother process in itself. I think the biggest takeaway from all of this, guys, is if you cannot manage your own emotional state, don't do it. Don't do it.
So does anybody know any attorneys down there in Atlanta or Georgia that could handle this kind of thing?
Listen, I'm sure there's a guy that knows about this already. But again,
maybe in the community.
Yeah, I just go local. But
all right.
I hate to put it on the person, but the accountability really is on the person purchasing the property at the end of the day. Because
got it.
But no one knows what to look for. That's the other thing. I mean, I'm sure your sister did everything she did to the best of her ability.
Yeah, she was a first-time home buyer. She didn't know about all this.
This happens a lot of times to first-time home buyers. Like it's the most predatory industry you're going to get involved in. Trust me when I tell you that. Hey, listen, when you put money in the mix of something, man, like people's moral principles and morals, they just go out the door. That's why I say be careful with people that just lead with that. Just be careful. And these are the best times right now, because right now, no one could hide who they are in these times. There was a young brother that posted something today. He's a real estate agent and not an agent. He's an investor in Philly, and he does good work. I've been following him for a while, and he's pretty smart. And he has a mentorship and things like that. And it just seems like the sentiment now is, we're all feeling burnt, right? He's like, I called on my other investors to see what's happening. Guys are tied up. Permits are being held. Guys are in framing for a year. Like, you got to have some bank to go through a lot of this stuff. I had buildings on blight lists. I had a friend who had a building on a blight list. After he purchased it, it wasn't supposed to be on there. They tore the building down. Then you have to hire an attorney to fight the city. You know how long that takes to get the money back? My property, even after a couple years, was still on the blight list. But the only reason that they can't tear it down easy because you need the building one vacant and you can't have any gas or anything running through there. And I went through all the checks and balances, got the rental, license, renewing it every year. And it's just one of those things, like when you have to know how to navigate every aspect of the business. So when you give someone else the accountability to do everything for you, they're doing you a disservice. They're doing you a huge disservice. So look to get your hands dirty, because that's how you learn, and then you make the informed decision. So when you got guys that are telling you they could be your agent, they could be your title, use their attorney, use their lender, don't do it. Because you need people from a distance that's going to work with your best interests. Because if you don't pay them, they don't work for you.
Yep.
I've even had, contractors call me. They're like, yo, Steve, everything's great. I was like, yo, did we pass inspection? They're like, yeah, we got the sticker. But I got to send them some pictures because XYZ wasn't done. And I'm like, what are you talking about? In my head, I'm like, this is the worst thing ever, because you bring the building department in so that they can tell you what's done and what's not done. But because they have relationships, they're letting this guy slide. And it's not till after you close up the walls, you start to realize that that's why you should hold those building people accountable, because now that guy never went back to tighten everything up. And it's not until I get the first tenant in and things start running, you start getting your leaks. So that's a whole nother story in itself, navigating. So every single aspect of real estate needs to be its own drill down course to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly.
It's a fact.
Right? But if it's all about leading with money, you're going to get exactly what you're looking for. You're going to get it. And that's just where I'm at right now. That's why I don't care who all these guys that are taking people for a ride. Not that I don't care that people were taken for a ride. It's just that you guys had something in mind that was not related to learning at the end of the day. You were not holding yourself accountable. You were just blindly giving money to people, and cash at that. Like, who pulls out cash with no paperwork in these times? But this marketing machine is strong. It's actually weakening right now, right? By nature, people just don't have it. You don't see any more $20,000, $30,000 master courses being sold. That air has been deflated. But then where's all the stories of people who lost their pants in this industry? Because they'll never come out. For one, you just sit in shame. You understand? Historically, that's how our people deal with stuff, staying quiet.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Dre and I, we're going to be definitely working together really soon. If there's any brother I want on here teaching real estate or dropping gems, would be a guy who I personally see how he handles his stuff. So before I have to go, I decide to work with him, I got to see how he works. I got to see what he's been through. I got to hear his stories. I was able to share that with him. I brought him out to Detroit. If there was any chinks in my armor, he wouldn't be on this call right now. Yeah. And this is what it is. Get out there and see what these guys are actually doing. Do you have boots on the ground? Have you done this before? What have you done? What's the ups and the downs to this? But you tell me there's no downside to real estate? 99% of this shit is downside. Be careful out here, guys. This is a predatory game, and it's not passive income. I don't know much of anything that's really passive. That's the number one lie right there. Real estate is not passive income. Now, don't get me wrong. You can stabilize a project. I don't get calls all the time from my tenants. You could definitely stabilize a project, but there's always something that happens. Always something. I check my cameras. Everything is a motion. I got 1,000 motions. The package got stolen. We need to know who did it. It's a nightmare, guys. It's an actual nightmare. I'm this close to just parting ways with my portfolio and just figuring it all out again. Well, I already got it figured out. I'm just the fix and flip part, or the fix and buy and hold. I'm over that. Right now, what we need in real estate is affordable housing. That's it. Create opportunity. There's nothing but land out here. There's nothing but opportunity out here. We just need to figure out ways to build more cost effective. And I see the biggest issue that I'm seeing right now with the way that properties are developed now, because back in the days, guys, there were, tiny homes is not a thing of the future. Tiny homes, they've existed in the past. We just created this 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 square foot situation. You understand? So part of what I'm looking to do right now is create something called workforce housing, make housing affordable. But I started to look on the lender side, and you go to certain local banks and they're just like, oh, we're not interested in funding things like that because they're too small for our balance sheet. So even if you wanted to build a house, let's say costs, let's say 1,200 square feet, 3 beds, 1 bath, a starter home, right? These people couldn't get traditional financing for that because these banks put a minimum threshold on stuff. They don't worry about that you're trying to get somebody into a house. They're just telling you that that loan balance is too small for our books. So this is what stops people from actually making a business out of affordable housing. The lenders just hasn't created a vertical for it. So crypto's come around at the right time because for me, it's like, listen, it's time to just run your own bank in all aspects of life. So not only would I be able to build affordable housing from 150 to 200,000, right? I'd be able to do it with a vehicle like cryptocurrency or NFTs to then back it by a mortgage. And then after that, you can just sell the mortgage to a secondary market anyway, because everybody's looking for paper to buy anyway. Everybody wants to be the bank. So the best position to be in is buying notes. First position, second position notes. That's the bank position right there. Banks win. That white picket fence situation was nothing. It was a story concocted by the banks, and we fall for it every fucking time. That's why I tell guys who are renting, yo, don't kill yourself thinking that you need to own homes. Because at the end of the day, go look at that mortgage calculator. After 30 years of paying that same note for that $300,000 house, you might be up to $1.2 million. So if that property is not worth that, and you go to sell the property, are you in the green or in the red? All right. So, so make some good memories in that house. I didn't buy my home with the intentions of it not being an investment property. I bought right. And I urge everybody else to do that. But most people, what are they doing? You buy at the height of the market. Everybody's buying based on interest rates. You're just not understanding market cycles. You're not understanding the numbers behind real estate. Grant Cardone tells you all the time, the single family home is the worst investment in the world. And he's right. It's the biggest purchase you're going to make as a person who just works a regular job. But no one sees it all the way through. It's an emotional buy at the end of the day. Any other questions? Who's invested in real estate now? Currently? Like working on a project in this climate right now?
Oh, Sterling is.
Okay, you're looking for tenants. You're going Section 8, or what are you doing? I'm sorry, Rocket. No, it's all due diligence, guys. You could always come to me with questions and stuff like that. Section 8 is not a bad program. You just have to vet correctly. Always get the prior landlord's information. If they hide it from you, it's because it's some nonsense that went on. Everybody feels like there's this security around Section 8, but not all Section 8 tenants are the same. They're not all the same, guys. You could have them costing you money. I wish I had this video. I should have queued it up. I had a video of a break-in at one of my units. I'm watching this thing on tape. I was helpless because I was in a whole nother state. There's nothing I can do. Yeah. No, Section 8's a good program. You just have to you have to vet properly. Do the correct background checks. I've never had a tenant move out and another landlord called me. That's another thing. Landlords don't communicate with each other. And if you're pressed and you need the income, then you tend to move even quicker. And at that point, you don't make sound decisions because all you're worried about is the security. Oh, they don't have a portion. Listen, Section 8 tenants not having a portion is probably, and the only reason I can identify that is because, like I told you, my wife and I, we own a brokerage. We house the homeless in New York. Champ's with us on that ride. And he'll tell you, because he deals with this all the time. You have to vet correctly. You have to see is the state you're investing in tenant or landlord friendly. Texas, they'll just throw your shit out. New York, you'll die in pain as they keep giving extensions for a year. They can draw this thing out years and bleed you. And there's people that are serial offenders. Like they do this. They'll pay you first, last, of security, might pay the first month, and they could live rent free for the next 9 or 10 months. And they do this constantly. And you know why they get away with it? Because when they finally get to court, and they got stuff together, what they do is they put a stipulation in the court doc to say, you know what, I'll move out now if you just drop everything and you don't put something on my rental history. And this is what happens the majority of the time. The landlord is so like ready to tap out that when you go to do the rental history, you'll never see an eviction. It's because they negotiated for them not to put that they've been evicted just so they can leave. And most landlords go for that. So when you do the background check, you're not getting the proper information from the check that shows the tenant never got an eviction. But if you were to get that landlord information and call them, he would have told you like, yo, this is what happened. But the background check doesn't tell you that. I'm lying, champ?
Facts. Major Jim alert.
And on top of it, Steve knowing what he knows, man, can you imagine the background checks that I do and the type of people that are looking for a $750 monthly rent, making $900, this is how much they make in Social Security, $967 a month. This is how much the elderly are being paid in Detroit, Michigan. I'm like, how could you have somebody live for $900 and the rent is $750 and they're telling me that they can make the rent? I'm out. I can't do that. You know what I'm saying? That math ain't mathing.
Yeah, that's wild.
And this is why the deeper I go down this rabbit hole, being on the landlord side and being connected to just what's happening, I'm getting a firsthand account of what's going on in these streets here. You understand? And it's not good. And if it's not Social Security, where most of these people are employed? Amazon. And then ask yourself, because in the next 5 to 10 years, Amazon's not going to have a workforce anymore. That entire process is going to be automated. So all these people that are working at these processing plants, they're not going to have jobs. You understand? So now you have to look at the industries that these people are in. Because once they lose the job, how much savings do people have to be able to, continue to let the bills roll? You guys got to be careful. There's so much that happens after the fact. Trust me, it looks great taking those photos. I remember bringing my family to the land and photos and the feeling of it. And then, man, that shit takes the air out of you quick.
Yeah.
And I could see how other people could be inspired by those photos. I haven't took a photo in front of these properties ever again after the first days. I'm in and out. Yeah, so that's it, guys. Next month I'm starting real estate back again, teaching within the academy. So you guys can have at it with me, and you'll have a lot more information. And I'm gonna take my time with y'all with this one. So of course, we're gonna have some, there'll be some free verticals included in your 50, and then if you want to take it a notch up, same thing, learn to earn. This is gonna be a lot of opportunity. I always like to document my process, so I can't wait to have, my next project, and you guys have at it with the documentation and things like that. Definitely want to show you everything that's entailed with it. And it's all a numbers game, guys. If you don't like numbers, then this ain't the game for you, because that's what it comes down to. Everything is dollar per square foot. How can I maximize this? So now I'm connected with district councilmen in my area. You start to look for funding in the area. This is the thing I would give to these white wizards is they're tapped in with knowledge, right? They make sure they have a deep understanding of, and they're just people in general. I'm not saying they're all like that, but when you tap in with knowledge, meaning you can go to the cities, you can see where the funding is at. Listen, there's streetscape funding for me, so I don't have to pay to beautify the front. They're going to give me a check for that. So next year I'm, kind of redoing the landscape, and just, all of that adds to the neighborhood. It changes the complexity of the things around. And again, if you're just owning one property, it's not enough to change a circumstance in a neighborhood to be dealing with everything else that goes on there. People getting shot, The amount of stories that I hear in Detroit, in the zip code I come from, kids, that don't come home from school. It's a lot that goes on out there, guys. A lot. So when you're in these places, you got to understand all that affects, everything around you. I've created a great community on the corner that I own, and then I've made good connections with people who own on the same commercial corridor. But it's an uphill battle. And I definitely appreciate y'all coming on tonight. We actually were supposed to have Forex on tonight, and that changed, so we just kind of threw this in last minute. But Forex will be back May 29th?
29th, yep.
All right, yeah, so we'll have our Forex guy back on the 29th. We had to reschedule.
All right, ladies and gents, I hope you guys enjoyed that. This has been the good, bad, and the ugly of real estate with Steve. We had our guest, Andre. Hope you guys enjoy it. See you on the next one. Peace.